The evening sky was painted with streaks of orange and purple as the sun dipped behind the quiet suburban neighborhood. Emily sat by the window, her fingers loosely wrapped around a steaming cup of tea, but her mind was far from the peaceful view outside. Something about her teenage son, Michael, had changed, and she couldn't quite put her finger on it. He wasn't the same boy who used to run into her arms after school, spilling stories about his day. Now there was silence, long hours locked in his room, and an unsettling distance that left Emily's heart restless. Michael was only 16, but lately he seemed older in ways that worried her. His eyes carried shadows, his laughter had faded, and his phone never left his hand. Emily, like most mothers, had a sharp intuition, and hers screamed that something was wrong. Yet whenever she asked, Michael brushed her off with short answers, insisting he was fine. But a mother's love is not easily convinced. Emily knew deep inside that behind his silence, her son was carrying a weight he couldn't share. That night, the house felt unusually still. Emily prepared dinner, calling Michael downstairs, but his footsteps never came. She climbed the staircase and knocked softly on his door. No answer. Pushing it open just enough, she peeked in. Michael was hunched over his desk, the glow of his laptop lighting up his tired face. He quickly shut it when he noticed her, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'll be down in a minute, Mom," he muttered, and Emily nodded, though her chest tightened. She didn't press further, but she left with the uneasy feeling that her son was hiding something more than late-night homework. As she returned to the kitchen, her thoughts raced. Was Michael struggling with friends? Was he in trouble at school? Or was it something deeper, something she couldn't see? The questions kept circling, but no answers came. Emily only knew one thing for certain. A storm was brewing in her son's life, and she had to be ready to face it with him. When Michael finally joined her at the table, the silence between them spoke louder than words. Emily tried to lighten the mood, asking about his classes, his teachers, even his favorite basketball team, but his replies were short and distant. Every mother knows when her child is slipping away, and that night, Emily felt the distance growing wider. Later, when she walked past his room, she noticed a folded piece of paper peeking out from under his pillow. She paused, torn between respecting his privacy and her rising worry. Her heart pounded as she reached for it, but just as her fingers brushed the paper, Michael's door creaked open. His eyes locked on hers, and in that tense silence, Emily realized she was about to uncover a truth that could change everything between them. Emily stood frozen at Michael's doorway, the paper still half hidden under his pillow. His sharp glance made her quickly pull her hand back, pretending she was only fixing the sheets. "I was just checking if you needed anything," she said softly. Michael nodded but didn't speak, his shoulders stiff as he stepped inside. For a moment, Emily wanted to ask about the paper, about the look in his eyes, about the heaviness that seemed to follow him like a shadow. But instead, she simply said goodnight, leaving the room with questions echoing in her mind. That night, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Memories of Michael's childhood played in her head. His first steps, the way he used to run into her arms after scraping his knee, the way he'd once trusted her with every little secret. When had that changed? When had her little boy begun carrying burdens he couldn't share? Emily knew teenagers were complicated, often hiding feelings they couldn't explain, but this felt different. It felt heavier. The next morning, Emily tried to watch Michael closely without making it obvious. At breakfast, he barely touched his food, scrolling through his phone with a blank expression. "Michael," she said gently, "you know you can tell me anything, right?" He gave her a quick glance and nodded, but his silence carried more weight than words. Emily's heart ached, but she decided not to push too hard. A mother's love was patient, but her worry was growing stronger by the day. At school drop-off, Emily noticed something unusual. Michael hesitated before stepping out of the car, glancing around nervously as if expecting something, or someone. His hands gripped the strap of his backpack tightly, and his jaw was set in a way she hadn't seen before. "Are you okay?" she asked again, her voice filled with concern. Michael forced a smile and said, "I'm fine, Mom." "Really?" But as he walked away, Emily saw the tension in his shoulders, the quick steps of someone trying to escape rather than arrive. Later that day, while sorting laundry, Emily found Michael's jacket shoved deep into the basket. Inside one pocket was a crumpled note with hurried writing. It wasn't homework, nor was it something ordinary. The words were vague but alarming. Something about meeting someone after school, something about a choice he didn't want to make. Emily's hands trembled as she read it, her her mind racing with fear. What kind of choice was her son being forced into? And who was behind it? That evening, when Michael returned home, Emily watched him more closely than ever. His face carried exhaustion beyond his years, and his eyes avoided hers. Every instinct told her that something dangerous was pulling him away, and if she didn't step in soon, she might lose the boy she loved more than anything in the world. The house grew quieter with every passing day, but inside Emily's heart, the noise of worry only grew louder. Michael spoke less, smiled rarely, and spent long hours in his room with the door shut. At dinner, when Emily tried to start a conversation, he gave short replies, as if each word cost him more than he could afford. She wanted to believe this was just a normal teenage phase, but the memory of that crumpled note wouldn't let her rest. One Friday afternoon, Michael didn't come home on time. Emily's chest tightened as she watched the clock. Minutes turned into hours. She called his phone again and again, but each time it went straight to voicemail. By the time the door finally opened, it was past 9. Michael stepped inside quietly, his face pale, his eyes tired. "Where were you?" Emily asked, her voice trembling between anger and fear. Michael hesitated. For a moment, he looked like the little boy who once confessed to sneaking extra cookies. But now his silence was heavier, darker. "Just out with friends," he finally muttered. His answer was too quick, too practiced. Emily knew when her son was lying, and this was one of those times. That night, unable to hold back, Emily slipped into his room after he had fallen asleep. She searched for clues, hoping to understand what he was caught in. Inside his backpack, she found another piece of paper. This one was more direct. It mentioned meeting someone again, a warning about not backing out, and a threat written in words sharp enough to pierce her heart. Emily's hands shook as she held the note. Someone was pressuring her son into something dangerous. The next morning, Emily confronted Michael gently. She showed him the note and asked, "What is this, Michael? Who is doing this to you?" His face drained of color. For a moment, his eyes filled with fear, then anger. "You went through my things?" he snapped, snatching the paper from her hand. "I told you I'm fine. Just leave me alone." He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Emily sat on the edge of his bed, tears stinging her eyes. She wasn't hurt by his words. She knew they came from fear, not from hate. What broke her was the truth hiding in his silence. Michael was trapped in something bigger than he could handle, and as his mother, she couldn't stand by. A storm was building, and Emily knew she had to face it head-on, no matter what it cost her.
The weekend passed with silence hanging heavy in the house. Emily tried to speak to Michael, but he avoided her gaze, locking himself deeper into his own world. She knew pressing too hard would only push him further away, but doing nothing was unbearable. She couldn't shake the image of that threatening note, the sharp handwriting, the hidden danger. On Sunday evening, Emily decided to follow her instincts. When Michael left the house, claiming he was meeting a friend for a quick study session, Emily quietly trailed behind at a distance. Her heart raced as she saw him walking faster than usual, his shoulders tense, his hands stuffed into his pockets. He finally stopped near an abandoned basketball court, where two older boys waited. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The boys looked rough, older than Michael, their presence intimidating. She crouched behind a parked car, straining to hear. One of them shoved Michael lightly, not enough to hurt him but enough to show power. "You know what happens if you back out," the boy said in a low, cold voice. Michael didn't reply. He just nodded, his face pale under the dim streetlight. Emily wanted to scream, to rush in and drag her son away, but fear rooted her to the ground. If she confronted them now, she risked pushing Michael into more danger. Instead, she waited until they left, watching her son walk home slowly, his head hanging. That image burned in her heart. Back at home, Emily tried once more. "Michael," she whispered, standing at his door. "Whatever this is, you don't have to go through it alone. Please let me help." Michael turned, and for the first time in days, she saw his eyes soften. But just as quickly, he looked away. "You don't understand, Mom. They'll hurt me. They'll hurt you if I say anything." His voice cracked with fear. Emily froze. The threat wasn't just against Michael, it was against her too. The pieces of the puzzle started to fit. Whoever these boys were, They had pulled Michael into something dangerous, and now he felt trapped with no way out. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with questions. What had Michael gotten involved in? How long had this been going on? Most importantly, how far would these boys go? One thing was clear. This was bigger than she had feared. And the thought that her son was carrying this burden alone tore her apart. As the clock ticked past midnight, Emily made a silent promise to herself. No matter what it took, no matter who she had to face, she would protect her son. She had no idea how dangerous the next steps would be, but a mother's love doesn't stop at fear. The next morning, Emily woke to find Michael already gone. His school bag was missing, but something on the kitchen table made her heart stop. It was a folded note, the same rushed handwriting as before. This time the message was clearer. He owes us. Stay out of this, or you'll regret it. Emily's hands trembled as she clutched the paper. They knew about her. They were watching her. The thought that strangers were threatening her family inside her own home filled her with both fear and rage. She couldn't sit back anymore. Later that day, Emily went to the school, hoping for answers. She checked with Michael's teachers, but they hadn't seen him in class all morning. Her heart pounded as she searched the nearby streets, eventually spotting him behind the cafeteria, talking with the same boys from the court. This time, though, things looked worse. One of the boys was holding Michael's phone, scrolling through it with a smirk. "We've got everything we need," he said. "If you don't do what we say, everyone will know your secrets." Michael looked panicked, his voice low. "Please don't. I'll do whatever you want." Emily's chest tightened. Blackmail. They weren't just threatening him physically. They had something on him, something he was desperate to hide. She didn't know what it was, but she could see the fear in his face, the way his shoulders slumped under the weight of their control. She wanted to storm in, to grab Michael's hand and pull him away. But again, something inside her told her to wait. She needed to understand the full picture before making a move that could make things worse. Still, the pain of watching her son bend under their threats felt unbearable. That evening, when Michael came home, Emily tried again. "I saw them," she admitted softly. Michael froze, his face going pale. "Mom, why would you follow me? Now they'll know. Now it's worse." He buried his face in his hands, his voice breaking. "They have something. If it gets out, I'll lose everything." Emily's heart ached. "Michael," she whispered, reaching for his hands. "Nothing you've done could make me stop loving you. Whatever this is, we can face it together." But Michael shook his head violently. "No, Mom. You don't get it. If they expose me, it's not just about me. It will ruin both of us." For the first time, Emily saw tears in his eyes. The boy who had always tried to be strong was crumbling in front of her. She realized then that the danger wasn't just physical. It was emotional, social, and deeply personal. The secret those boys held over him had given them complete control. Emily felt her fear turn into determination. If Michael couldn't fight this battle, then she would. But as she held her son in her arms, she couldn't shake the terrifying thought. What could be so powerful that Michael would rather suffer in silence than let her know? The next day, Emily decided she couldn't wait any longer. While Michael was at school, she quietly searched his room, guilt twisting her stomach with every drawer she opened. Finally, hidden under his mattress, she found a small USB drive. With shaking hands, she plugged it into her laptop. The files inside made her pause. They weren't illegal or dangerous, just a series of video recordings Michael had made late at night. In them, he spoke honestly about his feelings, the pressure of living without his father, the loneliness at school, and how sometimes he felt invisible. In one clip, his voice cracked as he admitted, "I don't know if I'm strong enough anymore." Emily's eyes blurred with tears. These weren't secrets to be ashamed of. They were the raw emotions of a boy trying to find his place in the world. But in the hands of cruel classmates, they were weapons. If shared online, Michael's pain would become entertainment, and the thought shattered her. That afternoon, Emily marched to the school. She found the boys lingering outside the gate, laughing among themselves. She walked straight up to them, her voice firm. "I know what you're doing to my son. And it ends now." The tallest boy smirked. "Or what? You'll tell the teachers." He waved Michael's phone in the air. "Everyone's going to see the videos. You can't stop it." Emily's heart thundered, but her voice stayed calm. "You're wrong. Can stop it. And I will. Because unlike you, I don't live in fear of the truth. If those videos come out, people will see Michael's strength, not his weakness. They'll see a boy brave enough to speak what most are too scared to admit." For the first time, the boys looked uncertain. Their smirks faded, their eyes darting between each other. The power they thought they held seemed to slip away in the face of her unwavering courage. Then, unexpectedly, Michael appeared behind her. He had overheard everything. His voice shook, but he stood tall. "She's right. I'm not ashamed anymore. If the world knows how I feel, so be it. At least I won't live under your shadow." The bullies froze. Without Michael's fear, their threats meant nothing. Slowly, they backed away, muttering curses under their breath. One of them tossed the phone at his feet before disappearing down the street. Emily turned to Michael, tears streaming freely now. "You don't ever have to hide from me," she whispered. He hugged her tightly, and for the first time in months, the weight seemed to lift from his small shoulders. But just as relief began to settle in, Emily felt a vibration in her pocket. She pulled out her own phone. A notification flashed across the screen. One new video uploaded. Her blood ran cold. The bullies had already shared one of the clips. The story wasn't over. The fight wasn't just about bullies anymore. It was about how the world would see Michael's truth. And as Emily held her son close, she realized this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. The video had already been uploaded by the time Emily and Michael returned home. Sitting side by side on the couch, they watched the clip play out. Michael's voice filled the room, fragile, honest, and unfiltered. His eyes were wet with fear, but his words carried a truth most people kept hidden inside. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Emily braced herself for the worst. She imagined cruel comments, mocking reactions, and endless whispers at school. But when she clicked on the comment section, something unexpected happened. Instead of insults, there were messages of support. Strangers wrote, "I feel the same way but never had the courage to say it. And you're braver than you realize." Other teenagers admitted to battling loneliness and pressure too. What was meant to humiliate him had turned into a mirror, reflecting a pain many carried but rarely expressed. Michael blinked at the screen, stunned. "They don't hate me," he whispered. Emily squeezed his hand. "No, my love. They see you. They hear you. That's all you ever wanted." Over the next few days, something incredible unfolded. Teachers reached out to Michael, offering guidance and counseling. A few classmates who had once laughed at him now looked at him differently, with respect, even apology in their eyes. The bullies, stripped of their power, faded quietly into the background. But more importantly, Michael began to change from within. For the first time, he stopped hiding in the shadows of his own thoughts. He joined conversations at school, spoke up in class, and even smiled when he got home instead of retreating into silence. His voice, once trapped in secret recordings, was now heard in the open. Emily, too, transformed. The constant worry that had weighed her down turned into quiet strength. She realized that protecting Michael didn't mean shielding him from every storm. It meant standing beside him, giving him the courage to face the storm head-on. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Michael sat with her on the porch. "Mom," he said softly, "I thought those videos made me weak, but maybe they made me strong." Emily wrapped her arm around his shoulders. "They showed your heart. And that's the strongest thing anyone can show." The days that followed weren't perfect. There were still moments of doubt, whispers at school, and the occasional mocking glance. But Michael no longer carried the weight alone. He had found something greater than fear. He had found his voice, and with it, the power to shape his own story. As for Emily, every time she looked at her son, she saw more than the boy who once hid his pain. She saw resilience, honesty, and a reminder that love, real, unconditional love, can turn even the darkest nights into dawn. And though life would bring new challenges, Emily knew one thing for certain: whatever battles lay ahead, they would face them together. The world had tried to break Michael by exposing his vulnerability, but instead, it revealed his strength. And sometimes that's the most powerful ending of all. The moment when pain turns into courage, and silence transforms into a voice that refuses to be ignored.